one of the things that the cooperative model helps us do is make sure that we're not just sitting in conference rooms talking about what we think we should go do next. We're actually connected to like real people living in real communities in rural America and making sure that we understand what their real problems are and spending our time and energy and resources on solving those problems.
Welcome to Agbioscience, the #1 podcast in the world for innovation in food, animal health, plant science, agtech, and agriculture. Here is your host, AgriNovus CEO, Mitch Frazier.
Welcome back to Agbioscience, the cornerstone of the agbioscience economy, production agriculture. Without farmers, no amount of agtech, animal health, plant science would ever be applicable to feed and fuel this world. One leader is taking that drive, taking that motivation, and turning it into action. And she joins us now. Welcome, Leah Anderson, Senior Vice President of Land O'Lakes and President of WinField United. Leah, it is a delight to have you on Agbioscience.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation, Mitch. It's my pleasure.
Elated you're joining us. Now, we are almost to the fall harvest season here in North America, here in the Midwest. And Leah, before we get into all things happening across the Land O'Lakes portfolio in WinField, what are you hearing from farmers as we head into harvest?
Yeah, great question. And it's a timely question. In fact, I'm here in Indianapolis right now, and I'm coming to you live from the Westin because we just completed the WinField United Elite Advisor Summit, which is when we get together with the top 250 sellers in our system and train them on all the new cutting edge innovation, insights, et cetera, that we're bringing out for the next crop year. And because of that, I really got a chance to talk to a lot of those retail sellers firsthand and get a pulse, like a real-time pulse on what they're hearing. And, you know, the folks that I spoke to are from all over the country, everywhere from Kentucky to Louisiana to Iowa to North Dakota, South Dakota, you know, you name it. And it didn't matter who I spoke to. You won't be surprised to hear, certainly, that there's some stress out there in the environment. Right. And, you know, we're all watching commodity prices be certainly significantly depressed compared to prior year. And, you know, there's also a lot of conversation about input costs. You know, and I actually pulled a stat, you maybe already know this, but since 2019, the input costs on a corn acre are up 39%.
Wow.
And on a bean acre, they're up 54%. So you start taking cost of inputs combined with where the grain prices are, you start looking at that decline in farm income levels. You know, we're looking at a 40+% decline in 2 years. That's unprecedented in American agriculture, not to mention that you've got all this last year's crop still sitting on farm in storage, unsold. And so it's a really challenging environment right now. It's a stressful environment. Certainly you're seeing a lot of growers start to get hunkered down, so to speak, in terms of how they're thinking about running things right now.
You know, when you look at that, Leah, it is your framing, I think, is brilliant because we're today, as we sit here, corn has a 3 in front of it, beans have a 10 in front of it. You see a global economy that is really challenging. Specifically in Europe and Asia, we see some significant headwinds. Given this is a global economy, all the things are connected. We're here in the Midwest, but the buyers of our buyers and maybe even their buyers are all around the globe. As you sort through this, Land O'Lakes, owned by farmers, serving farmers, the work that you're doing at WinField obviously connected directly to farmers. It's tough to isolate one variable or another, but is there something that you're looking at, that your team's tackling, that sort of rises to that pole position of we have to go solve this growing year or next?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think you know, when you're a farmer, you're entrepreneurial by nature, and we all understand that farming is cyclical, right? So it's not without risk. It never has been. But I think what we're starting to see is just the additional amount of risk that farmers are having to manage through and take on every year to grow, in our case, America's crop. You know, it's not just the financial pieces that you mentioned, but it's, are they going to have access to labor? You know, what's going to happen with regulatory risk, ESA? What's going to happen with litigation risk?
Right.
You know, you look at what's happening with glyphosate lawsuits. You know, and also farmers just really worrying about things like innovation. You know, they're worrying about weed resistance. You look at all the publicly funded R&D dollars, and they're being spent outside the United States, and farmers are concerned about not only if they're going to be able to use technology, but what's new in the pipeline. I mean, we've got 26 active ingredients coming off patent in the next couple of years here. So farmers, the complexity of the decision set that they're dealing with, the amount of risk they're taking on is almost overwhelming at times. And so when we say, well, what's our job? Because you mentioned that we're a cooperative, and Land O'Lakes is a cooperative. WinField United being one of Land O'Lakes' business units, we are a cooperative. We're actually owned by local retailers across rural communities in the United States who serve the farmer. And it's our job, I think, more than ever right now to help those retailers work with growers to focus on decisions and the combinations of decisions that generate the best return on investment. No longer are the days of just saying, hey, well, use this hybrid, you're going to get this many more bushel, and use this product and you get another so many bushel. The grower's going, but wait a minute, that all sounds expensive. What is my ultimate profitability equation going to be when I make these investment decisions? So moving towards that ROI focus away from just simply a focus on bushels and yield is really where we're focused as WinField United with a total acre approach.
That total acre approach, I think, is one, Leah, that bears some time on, because this is a pretty big evolution. I mean, you look at any ag tech over the last couple of waves of generations, right, where we've seen lots of focus on yield, or we've seen some sort of let's go do traceability or trackability to get to a different variable. But when you look at total acre and when you begin to think through how do we actually drive performance, and when I say performance, net farm income, talk about how you're tackling that with WinField and the broader Land O'Lakes cooperative.
Yeah, so the first thing is, I guess, maybe a little bit from the heart thing. And it's around just the purpose behind why we do what we do. And, being a cooperative, having the folks that own us, whether they're dairy producers on the dairy side of the Land O'Lakes business or egg retailers on the egg, the WinField United side of the business, when they're successful, we're successful. And when they experience pain, we experience pain. The beauty of the cooperative model is that we're really in it together. When we get things right, we pair our size, our scale, our capability with the local touch and sizzle and relationships that our retail has to really do something special. And what we have today is an applied research platform that, in my view, is really world class in terms of the capability that we have. So a lot of folks are familiar with the answer plot system that WinField United has today. We also have an innovation center in River Falls, Wisconsin, and several labs across the country. And what we're doing is taking and stacking together all the data that's coming out of that applied research platform. There's about 6 million data points a year that are coming in.
Wow.
Everybody's talking about data. Like, we should talk about AI too, but everyone's talking about data. But the difference in our data is that we've been building it over the course of 20 plus crop years based on real life farming that happens all over the United States and lots of different diverse geographies. And is collected in a statistically sound, scientifically backed way. We're using that data now and stacking it differently to understand how combinations of decisions, combinations of products respond to and interact together. The whole suite of decisions in terms of the ultimate outcome that's being generated versus just looking at one product or one decision on its own. And that capability is something that we're really excited about, because it's something that we think is really a differentiator for us as compared to somebody that wouldn't have the approach that we take to how we do our applied research.
And that research, applying that research, you also have unique advantage, right? Not only are you seeing it through this slice, you're seeing it across the Land O'Lakes portfolio, you're seeing it in different geographies, you're seeing it in different climates, different crop types. You're having maybe a unique, maybe one of the only views of how all those performs, the puts and calls, different soil types of maybe anyone here in the country.
You've got it. And it's interesting because I was actually just talking to a seller this week, and I was asking him how our insights help him sell. And he was saying, what's great about it is, some folks, if they didn't have all of the data driving the recommendation the way that we do on his behalf, might just say, hey, go use all the best stuff.
Right.
And when corn is at $7, the grower's like, okay. But when corn's got a 3 handle, it's not that simple. It's like, well, should I use a fungicide at all? Well, yes. But which one? Should I use a mid-tier fungicide in this part of my farming operation? And should I use a high tier over here? And what's that going to yield me? And how is that different? And how does that fungicide respond to this hybrid versus this hybrid? And what about nitrogen, right? And to be able to actually have a data-driven conversation there that's focused on the ultimate outcome, and know with confidence as a seller that what you're telling the grower is really in their best interest. It's not as simple as just go use all the best stuff.
Right.
It's actually use this right here for this reason because it's going to do this thing in combination with those other things. The sophistication of being able to do that is really unique. And the seller was saying, he said, what's amazing about what happens is it builds so much trust with that grower, because then that grower understands that you're coming into that interaction with integrity and using science, not just whatever you get paid the most in your incentive to sell. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's the promise that we've heard for decades of precision agriculture in action. And sometimes austerity creates that application out of necessity.
Oh, it's such a great comment. We have one of the services that we offer today is called Advanced Acre Rx. And what Advanced Acre Rx does is essentially takes all of that data that we have and essentially write a prescription for a grower to follow. And if that grower follows that prescription, you sort of agree on, are you going for 100% of your approved yield, 105%, 95%? And essentially, if you follow the prescription and you don't get that yield, get your money back.
It's amazing.
And it's that we actually know that much about how all these products and decisions are performing together that we can essentially warranty that outcome, which is really exciting and a really important tool, especially right now for a grower who may be feeling pressure to cut out some product applications or trade down. And this really helps them feel like somebody's backing them with the risk they're taking on.
In this era of turbulence, in this era of challenge, what does the future look like and where is opportunity? We'll dig into it next. Agbioscience is supported by Indiana Farm Bureau.
Need affordable health coverage? Indiana Farm Bureau health plans offer health benefits with options to fit everyone. Indiana Farm Bureau health plans give members a choice with multiple plans, many provider options, varying levels of coverage and deductibles, and a range of out-of-pocket maximums. Another great benefit about Indiana Farm Bureau health plans is cost effectiveness. Plans may have lower deductibles and premiums overall compared to ACA plans. And finally, all health plans are backed by excellent customer service. Go to infbhealthplans.com or visit your local Indiana Farm Bureau insurance office to learn more.
Welcome back to Agbioscience. We're talking with Leah Anderson, SVP of Land O'Lakes and President of WinField United. Leah, we've had a great dig into the current operating environment and really this unique advantage that WinField has. I want to zoom out maybe a little bit when we look at the broader cooperative system and look at all these challenges. I mean, you walk through it so brilliantly of you have hybrids and you have different inputs and you have different fertilizer, all of these different decision points that are made in a manufacturing facility that's outside that has multiple variables that you can't control. Mm-hmm. As you look at this evolving role of the co-op, whether it be Land O'Lakes, whether it be others, is this the era where co-ops really become strategic integrators of different technologies, whether it be digital, whether it be scientific? Is this the time when that actually happens?
Yeah, I think so. I actually think the power of the cooperative model is going to become more clear now than maybe ever before. And it starts back with what we've been talking about, which is that shared success and that focus on doing the right thing by an owner because, well, they own us. It's amazing what happens when your customer also owns you. I mean, it really holds you accountable to be doing the right thing. And, the purpose that we have at WinField United is to enable our retailer to be the hero at the farm gate. And if we're going to do that, if we're actually going to do that, we need to make sure we're keeping ourselves ahead of our best customers so they can stay ahead of theirs. And one of the things that the cooperative model helps us do is make sure that we're not just sitting in conference rooms talking about what we think we should go do next. We're actually connected to real people living in real communities in rural America and making sure that we understand what their real problems are and spending our time and energy and resources on solving those problems. In fact, that's the genesis behind why we built the AARX service that I talked to you about, is because we started to understand that there was a concern, there was a gap there. The other thing that we've done, it's a similar, where we heard there was a need, is we built something that we call our BioVerified designation. We were hearing from a lot of growers through our retail owners locally that they were really confused with
Right.
how to navigate the decision set when it comes to biological performance. Very crowded space, lots of new entrants.
Right.
What is snake oil versus what is real? So we took that very seriously to heart. We built what we call our BioVerified designation that takes all of the research that we do on all the products that are out there in the marketplace, and essentially it's sort of like a Better Homes and Gardens.
Sure.
Like old school. My grandma used to read
Yeah.
that, seal of approval that says, yeah, this product actually does what it's advertised to do. And there's a couple of key things that we look at and sort of provide input around. So, that's another example of where we're making sure we're staying grounded on what the real problems, questions, challenges are. We're bringing our insights and our capability to the table to help solve those and making sure that it's driving success locally so that we can be successful as well. I mean, I think when we're all successful, what's cool about this, having been someone that's worked for a large publicly traded organization before in a different industry, is
Right.
that when we have earnings, we return that to our owners who are in the country, in local rural communities across the United States where farmers thrive and the American country is fed.
Right.
I mean, it's just such a personal thing that really fuels where we spend our energy and again, making sure we're using our innovation to solve the right problems.
I love it. We often talk that this is the only economy in the world that touches every person on the planet. And when you begin to see that, right, because it all centers on food, whether it's direct or indirect, it's the American farmer. Mm-hmm. It is the owner and the customers of the owners of Land O'Lakes, of WinField, that are actually benefiting when the company benefits. I think it's a brilliant model. And as you talk with the owners, as you talk with the retailers, as you talk
mm-hmm.
with even their customers, the farmers, mm-hmm. There's a lot of things to navigate. I'm so glad you brought up biologicals, because there's the great ambition. There's a lot of movement in the space, a lot of M&A in the space. When you look at what's ahead, where are you most excited? What are you hearing from the field? Or is it science? Is it digital? Is it, is it practice innovation? What actually is that sort of at the top of the heap innovation that you are just on fire about?
Yeah, well, I'm on fire. You get to know me better, Mitch. I get on fire about a lot of stuff. But
I love it.
If I only have to pick one, I mean, my second one, by the way, is sort of some of these evolving new markets and what we're seeing happen with carbon in the future with water, and how we can help farmers start getting paid for how they're farming as much as for how many bushels they're farming. I think there's something really interesting there. There's benefit certainly for local communities and retailers and growers, and that's something that we're excited about. But for me, if you say, like, what's the thing that just gets you so annoyingly fired up, people can't make you stop talking, it's actually, and you won't maybe be surprised to hear me say this, because you see in my bio, I started my career in technology.
Right.
But it's artificial intelligence. I don't even think as humans in this world, we understand fully the power of what's going on right now with the speed of disruption when it comes to AI. And you think about the potential of what something like AI can do to help the way we do farming together today be drastically more productive, more efficient, more effective. And I was talking earlier about the sort of stacks of data that WinField United has. Now we also have stacks of transactional data
mm-hmm.
that we're in the process of cleaning and standardizing now with our owners. And of course, they have stacks of data that you've talked with others about that they're cleaning and managing locally. Think about as applied data.
Right.
You think about all of that coming together. It's got to be clean, and it's not sexy to spend time making sure that you're cleaning and standardizing it. But you got to do it, because if the data's not good, then what the AI spits out is a they call it a hallucination. But think about the power of us to start sensing a bug run before you see it, to start knowing there's going to be disease pressure before you see it, to start being able to proactively sense demand patterns and move product more efficiently, to touch product fewer times, to take more miles off of the road, to start optimizing and driving more efficiency across the entire value chain between the grower, the retailer, down to the wholesaler, even to the basic manufacturer. The insights that we can start generating and the way that we can monetize those in the future are limitless with what's going on right now with artificial intelligence. So that's the place I'm probably the most excited. I don't think we fully understand even what's all going to happen there, but it's going to start with that data. And that's where I think WinField United Land O'Lakes really has ourselves in a good spot because of the work that we put in place for so many years now to make sure that we've got that data in a good position.
Well, and I think when you talk data, you have to talk privacy. It's been a reality that has faced the industry, again, for decades. And the co-op model that you talk about is actually a really interesting one. I've not thought about it until right now. Mm-hmm. And you begin to think through, if your owners and their customers are ones to say, you know what, when you talk monetization, that typically means somebody makes margin off someone else. But there's a potential here as you think through a cooperative model, as you think through others, where this could be, everyone in the system could benefit if we can optimize the model, optimize the data cleanliness, and we can do that really well.
And you finally have a reason for it, because I laugh sometimes about this, because farmers, of course, are hesitant to share their data because they're sort of like, well, what are you going to do with it?
Right.
And, it's like, well, just give me your data. It'll be fine. Trust me. Well, no, but what are you going to do with it? It's like in your personal life, someone's like, give me your social security number. I'm like, no, why?
Right.
Why do you want that? Right? What are you going to do with it? But if someone explains to you, because they're your personal banker, well, I need your social security number so I can purchase this stock for you that you said you wanted to buy. Oh, okay. Well, you have my social security number. So I think the other thing that's happening here is there's starting to be a clear path forward on why a farmer would share the data, because there's going to be a benefit for them, especially when you start thinking about these outcome-based markets. I need your data because I'm going to help you prove that you farmed in a certain way so you can tap a credit on, carbon program or water program X, Y, or Z. So there's starting to be a clear value proposition of doing so. I think that also this trust piece, and it is the power of the cooperative model, and you're touching on it, which is the grower locally trusts their retailer.
Right.
They go to church together.
Right.
Their kids graduate together. They play sports together. I mean, these, again, back to the personal deep connection here. They trust each other. And so the grower's probably going to give their retail seller, Joe, their data, especially if Joe can articulate why they're going to use it to benefit together. Whereas, if it's some random website saying, hey, give me your data, you're like, oh, I'm not so sure. So that local connection is really important in how this all comes together. Certainly, it's something we think a lot about.
Leah, we have time. We could talk all day. There is so much for us to unpack. But I want to hit this because I think it's really critical to the producers listening, to the ag tech entrepreneurs that are listening specifically, as we begin to think through this next era, right? Corn peak, historically, corn market peak, 8 to 10 years, right? Peak to peak is 8 to 10 years, almost historical. You can almost set a clock by it. As you look through this next 36 months, assuming we just hit peak within the last, call it 12 to 18 months, we're going to be mid-cycle somewhere in that era. Mm-hmm. What are you looking at? What is WinField looking at? What is Land O'Lakes looking at when it comes to what's this next 36-month period look like? And what can innovators do? What can producers do? What can cooperatives do to make the most of a challenging market and come out stronger than we are now?
Oh, that's a big question. And of course,
Huge.
We're thinking a lot about this right now as we think about our strategy going forward and how we continue to shape the future of agriculture. And, I would say, first of all, I think this disrupted, volatile, stuff's changing all the time moment that we're in is actually the new normal. I don't think the amount of risk that's being layered in is going to slow down. I don't think the complexity of the decision set is suddenly going to get less complex. I mean, we didn't talk about weather events. Just layer that in.
Right.
It's like I looked at a chart the other day from NOAA. If you look at $1 billion+ weather disasters, there were 3 in 1980. There were 28 last year.
Wow.
Think about how all of this, the complexity of all this is changing. So I think we have to sort of embrace that. So it will certainly be this ROI mentality. And, you said, listeners on the phone, it's sort of like, how do you reposition the conversation to be focused on risk management and ROI versus just yield? And I know we're being duplicative with our conversation, a bit repetitive, but that is such a huge part of the answer. I think the other thing that we're going to see happen here, we're expecting to see happen, and are already seeing happen, is based on something that a guy I used to work for said to me. Different industry, but he would say, Leah, when times are good and lucky, look about the same. But when times are bad, you start to see a separation. And I think that's going to happen. And I think that's going to drive accelerated consolidation. I think you're going to see that at the grower level, certainly at the retail level, maybe even at the wholesale and the supplier level. So I think you're going to see rampant acceleration and consolidation. I think you're going to see the strong grow and survive. I think you're going to see the weak ask for help. And I think it's all going to be centered on this piece around ROI and using data, using insights, stacking it together to drive new insights to make better decisions, ultimately for the American farmer.
Leah Anderson, you are SVP of Land O'Lakes, president of WinField United. It has been a blast to be with you. My hope is we get to do this again.
I appreciate the invitation. It was great fun. The time went really quickly today.
Agree. Leah, thanks again for joining us on Agbioscience, and thank you for joining us on Agbioscience. You can get the latest Agbioscience news and insights from discussions just like this by subscribing wherever you get your podcast. And while you're online, check us out. You can get the latest news and insights about Agbioscience at agrinovusindiana.com. On behalf of the entire AgriNovus team, I'm Mitch Frazier, saying thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you real soon.
Agbioscience is a podcast by AgriNovus Indiana, hosted by Mitch Frazier, produced by Kayla Chittister and Fabian Rodriguez, photography and design by Kaylee Kerr. If you liked today's episode, subscribe, rate, and review so we can bring you more conversations just like this. Get all episodes of Agbioscience at agrinovusindiana.com.